Okay, welcome to episode 28 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Scahan. And before I introduce my next guest, I just want to remind everybody Total Hockey Training is live on trainheroic.com. And we are currently finishing off the summer. And we're currently in phase 3 of the off-season training. And we will roll into our preseason training in a short little while here. Also, Total Hockey Training 2 is available. That is a compilation of all the blog posts and several articles that I've written over the years, and you can check that out. My next guest is PJ Atherton. PJ is the owner of Atherton Hockey, 6-year professional hockey player, founder of Atherton Hockey. He's a husband and a father, two-time USHL All-Star, a national champion for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and a 2002 NHL draft pick. PJ, welcome to the show, pal.
Hey, Sean, happy to be here. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. So tell us a little bit about PJ Atherton. Obviously, you have your own company now, but I want to know about where you're from. How'd you get into the game, and what led you to Atherton Hockey?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Minnesota. I grew up in Edina, so pretty big hockey playing community. Came to the game kind of late, to be honest with you. I was 8 before I ever started playing. That sounds weird to say that's
Wow.
late, but
Yeah.
around here that is kind of late. Kids are usually skating prior to that. I didn't really. And to be honest with you, my youth hockey career, my minor hockey career wasn't really anything that special. I wasn't a standout player from the beginning. It kind of slowly built. I played on B teams, I played on B2 teams, and I kind of just kept getting better. And to be honest with you, didn't really envision any sort of career with hockey or anything like that. It wasn't until I got into high school where I started to kind of be one of the better players and played high school hockey here in Minnesota as a sophomore. And then, through my senior season and ended up being a player that got to play in the USHL. But prior to that, going through this whole process, I didn't really know what was possible or really where I could take the game. And I feel extremely lucky to have gotten a chance to play in the USHL. My first season in the USHL, again, wasn't really anything spectacular. I wasn't recruited by a whole lot of teams. And it was the league was a bit different then. It was older in 2002. And a lot of times most guys had to go kind of prove themselves in that league prior to getting any sort of scholarship offer. So I played my first season kind of to no acclaim, no fanfare. And then my second year, I was actually pretty good. I played really well. I really got better. I had a great coach there. Assistant coach Mark Carlson was our head coach, and he really helped me a lot, as well as AJ Taves, who's a scout now for Washington and has been for a really long time. But he really took a lot of time with me to work on my development, to work on my skating, to work on things that were limiting my game. And I had a really successful year. I played in the World Junior A Challenge for the Team USA and got recruited by a lot of different schools. And ultimately chose to go to Minnesota because I'm from here and I grew up watching them. And, it was a lifelong dream to play for the Gophers, and it was an amazing experience. And I got to go there. And like you said, my freshman year, we won a national championship. We had an incredibly talented team. Thomas Vanek was my roommate my freshman year. We have Paul Martin and Keith Ballard and Matt Tamarki and Matt Kowalski and all these tremendous players that were there. And, I was kind of in a secondary role even there, to be honest with you. It kind of was, I was bottom pair kind of guy as a defenseman. I was okay and built my ice time from there. Played a bunch through my senior year. Turned down a NHL contract my junior year to come back for another season to be close to family and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually turned pro. I had this 6-year professional hockey career that, to be honest with you, was pretty mediocre. It was pretty disappointing. Pretty anxiety filled, not the most fun. I wouldn't describe it as a fun situation. It was challenging. It was hard. I was riddled with anxiety, and it just didn't really ever seem to work out very well for me. And so eventually I retired from doing that. I worked for a big hockey company here in Minnesota, and then eventually it kind of decided that I had some of my own ideas that I wanted to explore, and I started my own company. So I started Atherton Hockey, and it was really surrounding, video coaching and finding ways to help players be better. And I started that business and was lucky enough to find one player that played in the National Hockey League to be my client. And took him from scoring 11 5-on-5 goals the year before we worked together to scoring 21 5-on-5 goals. And then word started to spread that I was able to help guys get better. And started getting more clients. I think I had 5 or 6 NHL clients my second year, and then 10, then 15. And then, now we work between 20 and 30 guys in the NHL every single year. And I feel so grateful that I have ended up being able to do what I do. As much as my playing career wasn't what I wanted it to be, I think it really set me up for this phase of my life to try to make a difference for other people and help them in the areas that I couldn't quite figure out to help myself. So I'm really grateful that I get to do, exactly what I want to do every single day. And I get to help the next generation of players, and this generation of players find what is the limits to their performance. So that's kind of how I got to where we are today.
I love that. I want to go back a little bit. So you said you were a B player and a B2 player. Does that mean Pee-wees and Bantams? Were you
Yep.
ever a double A
I
player?
didn't play Pee Wee A hockey. I played Pee Wee B hockey my second year. I played Bantam B2 hockey my first year of Bantam. So it's not like I was mediocre like when I was a mite. Like I was, 13, 14 years old and just really not one of the standout players.
I think that's awesome. I think that's a great point because a lot of younger players think that you have to be double A Pee-wees at age 11 to have a chance to go far in this game, and that is not true. And you are a prime example of, obviously you were a later developer, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And so you're a tall cat. You're probably what,
Mm-hmm.
6'2", right?
Yeah, I'm 6'2". Yep.
6'2". So were you a bigger kid growing up? Were you?
I really wasn't, to be honest with you. Like
Yeah,
I really wasn't at all. Mostly, even through my professional career, I more towards the end of my freshman career, I started to fill out more. But like, I was a
right.
skinny kid. I wasn't that big. I certainly couldn't dominate games physically. I think that had some advantages for me. I had to learn some other ways to do things. I
Sure.
had to learn
Yeah.
how to solve problems a bit differently. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely wasn't a early physical developer at all.
Now, what other sports did you play growing up?
I played soccer mostly was my big sport. I mean, that was the sport that I loved. That was the one
Really?
that I was really into. Yeah. And eventually kind of shifted into that. And to be honest, the funny thing is I was kind of a standout soccer player from a young age. So like I played U10 soccer when I was 7 years old. I played U12 soccer when I was 10. So I was kind of on that soccer path and I kind of burned out of it. Some adult stuff got in the way in terms of what teams I was forced to be on, and some of that stuff got in the way of that part of my life. But I was really into that. And, when I was a little kid, I played baseball, I played football, I played all those sports too. But soccer was my main focus when I was younger.
So you're saying soccer burnt you out a little bit?
It did, which is
Wow.
interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
especially from where we are, it got to be not so much fun. I had some coaches that kind of said that I couldn't play up anymore and I had to play with their specific team, and all my friends were playing on this other team and I didn't get to play there because he wanted me to be on his team, and it just a lot of the fun got taken out of it at that point for me,
Interesting.
which is a bummer. It was a big bummer.
Well, it shows your perseverance because you, like you said, you were a B player in Pee-wees.
Mhm. Yep.
You stuck with it, obviously, and it worked out for you in the long run. Now, did you start training off the ice as well during that period of time?
I did a little bit. I wish I would have done a little bit more. So yeah, I wish I did. I just didn't know much about it, to be honest with you. Like I
Sure.
didn't know it, I grew up with a single mom, and we didn't really know what we were doing. Hockey was just kind of a sport. We just
Yeah.
played. I was just playing hockey. And it wasn't anything where we were training or doing anything like that specifically. So I wish I would have learned a little bit more about training and fallen more in love with that aspect of performance, I just didn't get exposed to that really.
That makes sense. I just think it's great. Again, for the listeners, this guy didn't play double A in Pee Wees, didn't play double A's in Bantams, and first year varsity was a sophomore. So that can still happen today in 2024. Just want everyone to
100%.
know that.
100%. There's an interesting study in Sweden. They found a lot of their senior level players that play in Sweden actually weren't the standout players in junior hockey, which is really interesting and
Yeah.
fascinating, right? They can do long longitudinal studies there because players stay with the same club for a long time. And I don't know if you've read that study, but there's an interesting study that just says the best players that were the best when they were young don't end up being the best players at the senior level, which I think is really interesting.
That is interesting. And you mentioned Sweden, and I've had some conversations with some Swedish hockey players over the years, and they've told me that they've never played an organized game up until I believe the youngest might have been age 12.
Totally.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
cross ice, 3-on-3. They play other sports such as soccer, and also
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's more popular in Finland, but the sport of bandy. They
Yeah.
bandy
Yep.
and the Swedish, if you think about Sweden and Finland in terms of how small their countries are and their sample size is in comparison to the US and Canada, it's pretty remarkable what those countries are
It's
able to do on a
incredible.
yearly basis.
Absolutely. I think, and I'm not a scientist, don't quote me on any of this stuff, but I think Sweden has the same number of youth hockey players registered as the state of Minnesota. So like
Yeah,
the how they're developing to play on the national stage and compared to a country as big as ours is incredible.
as big as our state. Yeah,
Well, yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. They're as big as our state, and that's just one state that we have, and they're developing players at a rate that's far superior to what we are, which is really interesting.
yeah. It really
I
is.
find that fascinating. And to a point that you said before too, like of the not organized games, I attribute being able to go outside in Minnesota and play hockey at the park with how I learned how to play hockey.
Yeah,
That I went outside every single day, all day long, whether there were people out there or whether there weren't. And we would play in games, and there would be older guys there, there'd be younger players there, and we all played together. And no one told me to go there, Sean, right? Like it
right.
wasn't like, hey, you're gonna go play hockey today. Like that's all I wanted to do. And like I
Yeah,
just wanted to do that. And so I was excited about it and interested in getting better. And I went out there and played really well, and it was fun. I
yeah.
would say that I played better there than I did with my teams as a young man. I felt more uninhibited and
That's so
could try
cool.
things. Yeah,
That's why the ponds are frozen here, and that's
totally.
why they're packed all the time. And I'll never forget going to Hermantown a few years back and
Yeah,
seeing, like, talking to some parents there. They would drop their kids' hockey bags off at the warming house, which was next to the school. The kids would leave school, go down to the warming house, put their stuff on, and have you ever been up there before?
oh yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
like 5 outdoor rinks next to
yeah.
the high school rink, and
Mm-hmm.
the outdoor rinks are professionally Zambonied every day. And
They're incredible.
yeah, and the
Yeah,
kids just go there from after school
yeah,
until nighttime. Most of them have their youth practices at nighttime. The parents just pick
yeah,
them up after practice. Then you realize, okay, Hermantown's pretty good, right? And
yeah.
it's because
And
it's
not a big community either, right? Like that's
no,
not a
no,
big
no.
community at all. Like
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. We had the same thing in Edina. Like
yeah,
there was a bunch of different parks, so it's kind of like, well, what park do you play at, right? Like where's
awesome.
your home park? And you would go to friends on your teams, his park, and play against those guys. And there'd be all these. It was so fun. It was so cool.
Yeah, and that's not the same as putting a backyard rink in putting a rink in your backyard. It's just not the same feeling, right? It's
I
just
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's a
cool.
different feel. It's a community feel. It's not this person has this thing where his friends can come over. Everybody
Yeah,
could go there. Like there might
yeah,
be people you didn't like there, right? And you
right.
had to
Yeah,
navigate
exactly.
that and figure that
Competitiveness and
whole
all
piece
that.
out, right? Yeah, 100%.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all that.
Sure.
So talk about Atherton hockey. Talk about your niche in the game and
Yeah.
what you do. I want to get into, for example, you probably have clients still playing.
Yep.
For the record, this is during the conference finals of the NHL playoffs. We're recording this. So I want to get into that. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do? Like, I want to know, okay, with your clients in the grind right now, are you communicating with them?
Yeah.
Do they have time for you? Like, how does it work?
So right now I am delivering video to our guys that are playing the playoffs every 2 games, which is a
Okay.
little bit faster cadence than we do during the regular season. But with the way the playoffs are, and like shit, it could be over in 4 games. So
Yeah.
we deliver them pretty quickly. So I'm right when I get done with this, I'll finish up one of those videos. And the communication with our players during the playoffs can be a bit sporadic. It's a lot more text messaging. It's a lot,
Mhm.
they're busy. They're playing every other night. There's travel, there's intensity. So I'm kind of here for when they need me. If they have a specific question about something or want to talk, or there's something that I sent them in a package that they want to specifically talk about, then we go over that. Otherwise, it's hey, thanks, awesome, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And a lot of what I'm trying to do in the playoffs is rather than adding any sort of new piece to their game, it's reminding them of who they are and what makes them great. And just giving them gentle reminders of like, hey, remember when you play like this, you create a lot of success. And it's a lot of positive clips and a lot of great work in this area. If you keep tracking and hunting pucks like this and forcing turnovers, you're going to get a lot of scoring chances. Things like that. So it's more reminders of the things that we've built all season than adding anything new or revolutionary during this time period.
Okay. And so that's great. Are there any times, I mean, I guess during the playoffs, you don't want to say, hey, you're never going to say to a player, don't do that, do this instead. You're not going to say that to them during the playoffs. I get that
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
But is there ever a time where you might have to say, you know what, you've done this a couple times. I'd rather you do this, for example.
100%. Like if there's something that we're like repeatedly doing, and I'll point that out now too. Like, hey,
Yeah.
like remember this thing doesn't work, right? Remember that we
Hmm.
need to pay attention to this. So, uh, or having a conversation. Well, what are you thinking in this particular situation, and why are you what information are you picking up that's leading you to think that this might be the right play? But during the season, there's definitely like, hey, we kind of don't have a good framework for how you're thinking about this particular situation, and we need to find a different way. I'll get a concrete example. So one of the things that I see a lot from defensemen is when pucks they get dumped in and they have to turn and they have to go retrieve them, right? Very, very difficult thing to do. You can't see anything that's behind you. There's a big guy trying to run you into the glass. And I see a lot of players like they kind of completely forget about the forecheck and they just go as fast as they can to the puck,
Hmm.
right? A lot of times we're told, go hard to the puck. And so that's all they start thinking about. And they've lost the fact that there's someone behind them that they need to kind of control. So one of the things that I'll remind guys is, hey, the important part of the situation is not the puck. The puck is going to be where it is, and you know where it's going to be. The important part of the situation is slowing that guy down a little bit, get some information about where he is, create some contact so you can feel and make good decisions. Because if we just rush to the puck and we're just rushing through our decisions, you might make the wrong one and you're going to get run over.
Right.
So instead of speeding and trying to get this puck as quickly as we can, like let's solve the most important problem first. The most important problem is this guy is coming really fast at me and I need to slow him down. I need to start dictating the tempo and control the space around me. Then I can solve the next problem of what am I going to do with this puck? Versus if I skate straight back for this puck and I just bang it around the boards, number one, I might turn it over to somebody because I have no idea what's going on. And number two, that guy who's behind me might run me over,
Yeah.
right? That might be some guy who's 6'5" skating as fast as he possibly can from the red line. And he's just, and so now we're in kind of this unsafe position. So if we aren't kind of taking care of those types of problems, I will, point those things out and say, hey, we need to be able to think about this situation like this so we can keep ourselves safe and we can make some better plays.
Yeah, I think you just said it too. I was going to question that. It's the safety of the player too. So maybe
100%.
maybe you take a look left, take a look right, and then maybe you want to make a little fake or something like you go in one way and try the other or something like that.
Right. Right. Pull this guy to the net, make him turn his feet, and then we can go the other direction. Let's do something to get him uncomfortable and feeling like the game is, out of his control and he's chasing a little bit, so that you feel like you're more in control and you can make a better decision. Like, I'm not a huge, like, let's take a hit to make a play guy. Like, sometimes you have to do that, but like,
Yeah.
let's make a play and not get hit.
Right.
These guys in the National Hockey League are, shoot, now in college hockey and junior hockey, they're big guys.
Yeah.
You're gonna hurt yourself. So we got to take care of those things and really try to control our surroundings as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, it's tough because especially now in the playoffs, you might have, I mean, a guy like Tom Wilson coming down as F1.
Totally.
His job is to put you through the glass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and especially if a fourth line is out there, the job is to dump it in
Yeah.
and create a turnover. So I get that.
100%.
Yeah.
That big kid for the New York Rangers, right? Rempe.
Oh yeah, Rempe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was
Like,
thinking of. Yep.
that dude coming down at you, he's not particularly interested in touching the
No,
puck. Like,
no,
he's not really worried about that. So
no. He
we
wants
can't
to
just
lay
go
the
back there and wait
body
for
and
him.
get,
Yeah.
get MSG rocking, right?
100%. Even
Yeah.
Matthew Tkachuk, like, crazy
Yeah.
skilled player, but he wants to dictate the tempo and he wants to make you feel uncomfortable. And so my position is, how do we switch that equation? Like, just because you have the puck doesn't mean we can't make that forechecker feel very uncomfortable. Make him confused about what you're going to do. Control his speed, control his angle, control some of these parts of his game so he feels like you're dictating what's going on. And then you could solve those problems, I think, a lot easier.
I love that because you mentioned Kachuk. I read something the other day that it might have just been specific to the last game played, but there was a stat I read, like scoring chances for Florida versus for the Rangers while Matthew Tkachuk is on the ice was, I want to say, like 90% to 10%, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's crazy.
So yeah, that's pretty amazing. I don't know, I just thought I'd throw that out there. I
No,
thought,
100%. You get a guy like that making everyone uncomfortable, making everyone
yeah,
make bad decisions. You guys are just going to get the puck back, right? Florida's just going to get the puck back because we're all of a sudden speeding up the tempo of our decision making, or we're making wrong decisions. And so I think he's brilliant at
yeah.
that, right? And then he gets the puck anywhere around the net and it goes in the back of the net. It's like he has that element of his game too.
Oh, that's what he does so well.
100%.
So during the season, then you're in communication with your
Yep.
clients on a during the season, is like every couple days, or you probably look at their schedule and say, all right, they have games here. I'll talk to them then.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like 5-game segments. So I like seeing the trends that are going on consistently over the course of 5 games. I think it becomes hard in like a single game review. I think it
Mhm.
becomes hard to put together a cohesive story about what's happening, because you're a smart guy. You and I could sit down and point out 50 different things a player should maybe have done differently on the shift. And they're not bad ideas. The problem becomes how we package those for players. If
Mhm.
you just sit down and you go, hey, look at this touch, or we just review all of your puck touches in the ozone. It's like, okay, on this one you should have done that, and on this one you should have done this, and you could have done your hand position over here, so on and so forth. And I have found, or at least I felt, and I know players, either you walk away from that conversation going, geez, man, I'm just not very good. There's so many things I'm not doing correctly. Or you walk away from that conversation going, I have no idea what he just said. Like,
Mhm.
that was
Mhm.
way too much information. So I am trying to gather as much information about what is consistently happening, and so that I can point out the critical pieces and only deliver the key points of leverage that are the small little things that'll make a really big difference, versus pointing out every little tiny thing that you could possibly think about a hockey game.
That makes sense, and also keeping it simple, right? That's
A
probably the
hundred
most
percent.
important thing, right?
They have to be able to learn. It's a learning tool, right? And if you have too much information, you can't learn what's going on. And if you have no framework to put that into, it's just random bits of information that you're trying to memorize, right? So
Yeah.
if we think about like our memory, you can't just list a whole bunch of objects and then expect to remember it. You have to attach those things to something. So you have to have a sentence that you can attach them to, or attach them to a story is a really easy way to remember a bunch of different things, right? Context. So
Mhm.
that's the main thing that we try to do, is build context for players. you are this type of player. And in these scenarios, this is how we want to play. So that when we talk about each individual scenarios, they already have kind of a framework of, okay, I want to control space with my body right when I touch the puck. And then I want to try to create some separation. I want to try to make a play to the inside of the rink, right? Like they have something to grab onto. So then we can say, where did this thing break down? Well, we didn't create a body position advantage. Okay, we know that's a big part of your game. Like, let's create body position advantages. And then they can go into the next game and actually have something to work on because they know it's part of a bigger scheme of things. It's not just some random information.
I love that. That's awesome. So talk about your off season then. What do you spend time doing? Is it like a year end review with a player, or is it
Absolutely.
let's
Yep.
let's work on A, B, and C over the off season and incorporate it to next season? Like, what does that consist of for you?
100%. So one of the big things that I'm super passionate about is tying our off-season development to specific in-game results that we want to have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to work on puck handling or shooting for the sake of it. So we need to know, like, what does that mean? So if I need to get better puck skills, where there's a lot of different things that could mean. Does that mean I need to handle the puck closer to myself in traffic? Does that mean I need to be able to separate my upper body? Like, what are we talking about? So I'm trying to go through with all my players and tie back the things that they want to work on to specific in-game opportunities. Like, we need to be able to do this, therefore you have to work on A, B, and C. And in my opinion, the same thing applies to kind of the physical changes that we want to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a player that's 26, 27 needs to be healthy. He's not going to get tons and tons of strength gains. So, like, what are the specific little things that he can work on that are related to his game? Does he need to have better balance or have better change of direction? Like, does he lose tension in his torso when he's trying to turn? Like, what's the problem and what do we try to solve for? Because it's a limited time period. And I think that's something that's a little bit underutilized, in my opinion.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and like the first thing you said was he wants to stay healthy, right? What can we do?
100%.
What can we do to help the player stay healthy?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And so what is what is the future of your business here? Like, do you love what you do? Obviously,
Yeah.
do you want to train coaches in your system? Do you want to expand?
Right now, I love working with players. And
Mhm.
so I am focused on how can we be the best company in the world at making players better. I have a very big
Yeah.
passion that everything we do is player centered, that I'm not, on social media talking about whatever so that I can gain followers. Like, it's just, I want it to be about how can I go spend my time learning things and having experiences and connecting with people so that I can make the guys better. Like, I don't want to be the solution to the problem. I want them to have the power and teach them about how doing that. So I would say, like, the future and the evolution for us is just continuing to get better at what we're doing, finding better ways to deliver information, trying to find better ways to visualize the statistics of the game. All the
Yeah.
advanced stats, and that is coming a long way.
Hmm.
Understanding what are the relevant statistics and, like, how can we present that information so it's digestible for a player. I think that's a big key for us of what we're trying to figure out. How can we measure progress objectively, and how can we show development to our players so that they feel good. And then we also want to start working with the next generation of young talented players. Like, I want to take all this stuff that we've learned, and I've learned over the course of the last 10 years, watching like 3,000 hockey games a year, and I want to bring it to a younger generation of player because I'm interested to see what happens if our company's working with a player for 6 years prior to him turning pro. Where could he start in the NHL? Like, well, how could he jump forward? So I think those two things are what we're passionate about right now. And then after that, I'm not sure where we take it from there, but that's what I'm excited about right now.
I love it. I love it. Awesome, PJ. So tell the listeners, where they can find out more about you and
Absolutely.
reach out to you if they have any questions or maybe they're interested in learning from you.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can definitely email me at pj@athertonhockey.com, just ATHERTON hockey.com. Or our website is athertonhockey.com. Very, very simple. We are a resources are in our company are developed are pointed at getting players better. So there's not a
Yep.
lot of frills on the website. I don't have a huge Instagram following. Like I am
Yeah.
watching hockey games and learning about how to make players better. So the best way to get in touch with me, shoot me an email. I'd love to have a conversation with anybody about how we can help their player be better.
That is awesome. That's great, man. Well, this has been awesome, bud, and I appreciate it. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too.
And it's great to connect. And yeah, if any listeners out there, this is coming to the game, folks. This is a niche. There's people like PJ, there's others as well. It's like this is coming, and PJ is really good at what he does, especially if you're in the great state of hockey in Minnesota and you want your child to get better or you want to get better as a player. This is a no-brainer in my opinion. So PJ, thanks for coming on the show today, pal.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.